Hello, welcome back to Dark Island Stories. Today's video is going to be answering some questions that I asked readers of my first novel, A New Dawn, to send in if they did have any questions while they were reading the book, or if they wanted to ask me anything in particular about my writing process. I just put that out there and said send them in to me, and I will put a video together answering them. Some time ago I did do written answers to some questions, but I thought it'd be nice to put it in a video format as well for the new channel. So without further ado, here are some of the burning questions from readers of A New Dawn. First question: is there any process you take to prepare writing? I imagine that's to prepare for writing. Yeah, I mean, once I have an idea, I'll write a brief outline with what I imagine at that time the main beats will be. I take that and break it down into chapter outlines then. You know, it's not massive outlines, just one or two sentences as to what that chapter will cover, main plot beats for that, where it starts and ends and that. Because I've always had that thing in my mind, that discussion about the architect versus the gardener, the different writing styles that other authors use, and I used to think that I was, you know, like a pure green finger. You plant the seed of the idea and just watch it grow, and to a certain extent that does still happen. The novel that I'm working on at the minute, False Horizon, that has deviated from the original plan. The story has gone into a direction that I hadn't thought about, and I'm along for the ride just as much as hopefully you guys will be. So I think I do lean more on the gardener side of things, but I think a little bit of planning. You know, where am I putting my planters? I think that's always needed, and I think I'll always work that way, to be honest with you. Second question: what is the most challenging part of writing for me? It's a good question. At the moment, it's probably sitting myself down, disciplining myself to sit and write regularly. It's very haphazard at the minute. Life is happening as it is to everybody. The world is happening as it is to everybody. Some days I just don't feel like it. Some days I can't bring myself to even get in the right headspace for it. So that's probably the most challenging part, is actually being disciplined and saying, right, today I'm going to write 500 words, today I'm going to write 2,000 words, and doing it regularly every single day. Hopefully I'll be able to get into that habit and be a little bit better, a little bit more disciplined. Next question: were there any particular challenges you faced while writing this novel, and how did you overcome them? I can't, in terms of A New Dawn, I can't actually remember having any major sticking points in the writing process. Again, it was as and when time allowed to just jump on and do a little bit of it. I was living with a friend at the time when I started that, working away from home. So I was missing my family, and I spent a bit of time, obviously keeping in touch with them and talking to them and trying to get into that headspace again when you're away from family was difficult. But once I did get into the headspace, the story actually started really flowing, because it was a subject I've always been passionate about. The interest was always there, and the story beats were always ticking over in the back of my mind. So in terms of the actual story, no, there weren't any real sticking points with that. So, like, being absent from the family aside, the only other real challenge for me was when I had a completed manuscript on that book and deciding what I should do with it. I wasn't very... I mean, I love the story. I wrote it for me. I wasn't 100% sure whether other people like it. I think it was lack of confidence. So it's like, I've got this manuscript now. What do I do with it? Do I put it out there? Do I await the judgment of my peers and whatnot?
I mean, what if they say I'm no good? What if they say, get out of here, kid, you got no future? I mean, I just don't think I can take that kind of rejection.
But luckily, I've got a very encouraging wife, and she told me not to sit on it. She said, why are you sitting on this? Let's get it out there. What's the worst that could happen? So, yeah. Being away from family, what to do with a complete manuscript were the biggest challenges for me. Who would you compare yourself to in writing? I don't know. I don't think I'm out there enough to really compare myself to anybody. I don't think I think my style is my own. I'm sure people will draw similarities to other authors. I mean, A New Dawn is a speculative fiction, and I, you know, before I'd started writing that, I'd recently read 11/22/63 by Stephen King. I really liked the way that book was laid out and the story it told. So, and I'm in no way comparing myself to Stephen King. Don't take that out of context. But yeah, I don't think I can really compare myself to anybody. It's just my style. We'll see what other people think. Draw your own conclusions on that one. Read the book and tell me what you think. Next question. Do ideas flow naturally to you, or do you need inspiration? I don't think I need inspiration. A lot of the time, I've got a head full of ideas. I'm a daydreamer. My head is one of those heads that's never quite focused on the things that really matter, but away in in storyland, coming up with different what ifs and things like that. So yeah, they flow quite naturally for me. Probably wanders into fiction far too often, but who can blame me in in the modern world? Yeah, they come naturally to me. I think my biggest problem is that I've got too many ideas, and I'm sure a lot of authors have that similar problem. I think they have too many ideas, and new ideas excite them, and they want to get started on them, and that's probably why there are so many unfinished first drafts floating around in the world. Next question: what would represent the zenith of your writing career? Writing career, right? It's still infant, isn't it? It's still infant, my career. But I think I would probably say when I got my first proof copy of A New Dawn. I opened the package and opened it up, and there was the title. There was my name on the cover, and I opened it up, and there were my words on paper, printed. That was a great feeling. I think so. So far in my infant career, I think that is probably the zenith. Hopefully, in the future, I'll be able to walk into my local Waterstones and see my book on a shelf. That will then become the zenith of my career. But until then, who are your favourite authors? Well, I've already mentioned one, Stephen King. Absolutely fantastic, a legend in writing. I'm a big fan of George R.R. Martin as well. Dan Brown, I'm currently reading Dan Brown's latest, Secret of Secrets. And I mean, I've always been a reader. There's been loads of the authors that I've really enjoyed. Obviously, got the classics like Dickens and Tolkien. I never read C.S. Lewis, but I like the movies of the Narnia stories. So maybe I'll get around to reading those books one day. But there's been loads. People just recommend books to me, and I like them. If I don't, then I don't. But the big names are definitely some of my favourites. Next question: has writing always been a passion of mine? It really has. It really, really has. Yeah, I've always made up little stories. Um, A New Dawn is not my first attempt at writing a Titanic-based story either. All through high school, I was very much trying to write Titanic stories, and there was one time when the James Cameron movie had just come out, where I had to write a piece of creative writing, and I wrote a Titanic story. Took it to my English teacher, who told me never to write anything about Titanic because it's too hot a topic, and there's too much competition out there, and it would just be drowned out. So, obviously, I listened to her, and wrote my first novel, and published my first novel based around Titanic. But yeah, I've always enjoyed writing. I just love the process of creating worlds and creating characters, and I find it as a method of wish fulfillment. And these people that I create, they can do things that I would like to do, but would never actually do in real life. So that's really, really good. And when you're writing, you are God. And it took me a long time to realise that. It was only actually until recently, when I hit a bit of a writing block, that I spoke to a good friend of mine, and he basically used those words. He said, in the book, you are God. You can decide what happens. You don't need to get hung up on facts and cross-checking with what actually happened in history. You can determine what happened. It's speculative history, so if things change, things change. So yeah, I love the process of writing, and I will never give it up. Next question: what advice would you give to another aspiring writer? Never stop writing. Never give it up. I suppose. Never stop writing. Never stop reading. Never give in to doubt. Never give in to doubt. No, yeah. Yeah, don't listen to the inner saboteur. If you've got a story that you are enjoying writing, write it. Write it for yourself. Don't write it for others. If it's something that you'll enjoy reading, then go ahead, write it. And finish a project before starting a new one. Okie dokie. Next question. Where did the inspiration for the book come from? Well, I've sort of alluded to this already. I've always been a Titanic fanatic ever since the age of 4 or 5, when I was in my grandfather's living room looking at his bookshelf, and I found Dr. Robert Ballard's Discovery of the Titanic coffee table book, and just fell in love with it, turning the pages and seeing all of Ken Marshall's fantastic paintings. I just became absolutely obsessed with that story, as I am sure thousands of people around the world have. It's just one of those tales that gets its hooks into you. You want to know, how could something like this happen? Why was it allowed to happen? Yeah, that has always fascinated me. But I suppose the main driving force for A New Dawn, beside my own fanaticism on the subject was actually came from watching one of James Cameron's documentaries on the subject when he posed a thought exercise to a table of experts. It was a hypothetical situation.
Let me pose a problem based on everything you guys know. Let's say I've got a time machine and I can teleport you back to Titanic 1 second after the ship has already hit the iceberg. You can do anything, but you've already hit the iceberg. So it's really an exercise in, could the crisis have been managed differently if they knew what we knew?
And I thought that was a fascinating situation. With, you know, powered with hindsight, what could you do? 1 minute, it's already struck the iceberg, so you can't steer the ship away. But what would you do to try and save more lives? I thought that was a really, really interesting scenario, and that became the crux of David's journey in A New Dawn. So as I was crafting that story, that was the seed that I planted and wanted to see where the story would take me. But I always thought there's always been a lot of misinformation flying around about the Titanic story on YouTube, Facebook, things like that. There's lots of conspiracy theories. So I thought writing a book like that around that topic would also give me my own opportunity to try and set right some of those erroneous theories and also bring to the surface more recent scientific discoveries and hypotheses, and also include some events that are always left out of mainstream media when it relates to Titanic, movies and TV shows, whatever. They always leave out certain aspects which I find fascinating. A good example of that is Titanic's departure from Southampton and the near collision with the SS City of New York, which was moored up alongside her, and the canal effect of the massive propellers on Titanic creating this suction effect which tore her from her moorings and caused her stern to swing out into the channelway and almost collided with Titanic, which delayed departure for a little while. That's never explored in any movies. They always sort of depict it as this glorious setting off of this queen of the ocean. So I wanted to include something like that in my book as well, because that sort of built up a little bit more of the superstitious ramblings of passengers on board. Some people thought, oh, is this ship cursed? And that it all played into it. I really liked that, so I wanted to put those sort of things into a novel as well. What made you want to write a novel about Titanic? That's sort of just been covered in that last answer, to be honest with you. I think just wanting to contribute a little bit to the legacy as well and keep the history of the ship alive. I think that played a little bit into it as well, I suppose. Which character do you connect with most? That is a tough one. Because I think there's a little bit of me in every character, really. I suppose I probably I'm closely associated more with Bridget. She isn't a confrontational person. She's a little bit nerdy, a little bit geeky. She likes libraries and history, and getting very excited over historical relics. That's a little bit of me. And she's, I think, in her mind, the one thing that would make her the most happy is just having that person that she's always had a close relationship to. He's never sort of left her mind. I think she would be happy if she ever got the chance to settle down with that person. I think I used to think like that as well. But lucky for me, I got my one person and I settled down with her. So, yeah, Bridget is the one I connect to most. What inspired me to combine the Titanic disaster with a time slip element? Well, I'm a massive Back to the Future fan. Time travel has always fascinated me. The mechanics of it, the science of it, the possibilities of time travel. It's always fascinated me. Just to be able to peer through time, not necessarily even go back, but if we had a way to observe the past and get the answers to questions that we've long asked, that is absolutely fascinating. So again, that plays into the wish fulfillment element of what writing brings me. Titanic disaster, that's an event I think a lot of people would like to get the full facts on. In fact, I remember when I was a kid, Dad showed me a TV program from the 60s, quite famous. I think it was from the 60s, apologies if that's wrong. Time Tunnel, and I believe the first episode of Time Tunnel was them going back to Titanic. So I must give that a watch again, because that has been some time since I watched that. I wonder how that holds up. Without giving spoilers, how does the time swapping mechanism work in your story? Did you establish any rules or limitations? I don't know. I think I didn't want it to be just another MacGuffin that allowed time travel to happen. I wanted it to be a little bit more supernatural, something a little bit more intangible, something that the protagonist doesn't really have any control of. I thought that was interesting, and that's where the idea of the illness came from. Because with it being his illness, that you could throw the question of, is he actually seeing these things that he's seeing, or is that a symptom of his illness? As for rules and limitations, yeah, I fleshed that out a little bit, and I think that's going to be explored a little bit more in the follow-up book, False Horizon. So for those, you'll have to stay tuned and find out when I find out. Next question. How did you balance historical accuracy with speculative elements of time slipping? So this is where I got hung up a little bit, and still get hung up in writing the sequel as well. I tried to be historically accurate as I possibly could. Certainly in terms of the ship and its layout, and obviously the ports it did visit. I wanted to be respectful of the ship itself. So I spent days and more hours than I could probably count poring over deck plans, or photographs. Father Brown's photograph book came in very, very, very handy as a reference point. And I've got so many books and coffee table books that are all about that, that show pictures of Titanic and her sister ships Olympic and Britannic. Books that survivors wrote with their own testimony. I looked over the transcripts from both the American and British inquiries. So yeah, really wanted to be respectful of the ship and the people on board it. So like I said, with the time slipping thing and writing the book, obviously, as I've said before, I am God when I'm writing that. So any changes that I do make around the story, I try to handle them as respectfully as I can, and I don't want to, sort of disrespect the memory of any people on there. So I any major changes I keep purely, I think, to my own cast. But I think using the time slip and the knowledge that we have of Titanic sinking now, I think it sort of allowed me to write those counterpoints in the prose as well. It's like, oh, this is how it was shown in the movie, but the character seeing the sinking for himself, you can actively compare the fiction to what he was seeing, with what he was seeing being based off recent scientific research. So yeah, ultimately, I wanted to be respectful, and put in the new science, basically. How did you come up with the ideas of having characters from differing time periods swap identities? Well, it's not so much that they swap identities, really. I sort of remembered that the niggling flaw with most time travel stories is that characters travel through time but conveniently forget about space. So obviously in this book, David is travelling 100 years into the past. Earth would not have been in the same place that it is in his own time. So with that in mind, I had to sort of solve for that, and so that's where I came up with the idea of an anchor in time. So it's not that they're swapping identities, it's that David is being anchored to somebody who was on Titanic, and he's able to witness events through his eyes. Yeah, so Henry is David's anchor, basically. That allows him to get to the place and the time all at once. How did you approach developing characters from both 2012 and 1912 to make them relatable to readers? It's a good question. I suppose the real challenge was that the historical characters, well, I wasn't alive in 1912, so I can only go off what I read in books and what I see in period dramas, which are obviously very hammy, nice and cheesy. I think reading the testimonies of survivors helped a lot, and actually I think I managed to pull it off because one or two of the readers that of the novel have come back to me and said that the sections within 1912 are actually their favourite, because they like all the historical detail, they like the dialogue. I think there's a lot more character in those people from that time than perhaps there are in the modern world. We're all becoming a little bit samey, aren't we? Because we see each other on screens every single day. Everybody shares everything now, so we all pick up each other's traits. And I suppose people in 1912, they were a little bit more individual back then. So, I actually enjoyed writing the historical portions a lot more as well. I think you could have a little bit more fun with the characters back then, and break some of those norms as well. So everybody thinks that women back then, and to some extent, it's probably right that women were very quiet. Sort of did as they told. They didn't have many options. They had to be sort of respectful of their husbands and sort of do as they say. And that's why I really enjoyed writing Margaret so much, because she is such a free spirit. She's very adventure seeking. Yes, she is a wife and a mother in a fairly rural town in England in 1912. So the prospect, Henry goes to her saying, "Oh, I've got this letter. We might need to go to America." Dreading telling her that, and she jumps at it. She's like, yeah, what an awesome adventure this is gonna be. Let's go for it. So yeah, I really liked writing Margaret because of that. Given the historical setting of Titanic, how much research did you undertake to ensure accuracy in portraying the events and atmosphere of that time? How much research did you undertake? Well, again, I've alluded to this in a previous answer, but I've been reading books on Titanic and other shipwrecks from a very young age. So I had a lot of the overarching knowledge already in my head, but this book allowed me to really dig into some of the finer details, and it was definitely a learning experience for me. I managed to, it got me out going to actual places. So I've visited Belfast a couple of times. Went down to Southampton. I haven't been to Cove yet, which was Queenstown in Ireland. But I even went over to Florida to have a look at their exhibition that they have in Orlando, and just seeing all the fragments and pieces of history laid out in front of me, it really taught me a lot about the story that I didn't know as well. So I did a lot of research, buried myself in books. The website Encyclopedia Titanica came in very, very handy. The people at Titanic Honor and Glory with their digital recreations, and the playable historical museum where you get to walk around the ship itself. All of that was absolutely vital in me getting this book together. And like I said before, I wanted to be really, really respectful of the event itself. So yeah, I don't know what else to say really on that one. I did a lot of research. And I hope that comes across in the book. How did you tackle the challenges of blending historical aspects with that of science fiction? Well, I never really thought of it as science fiction while I was writing it. I suppose it technically has science fiction elements to it, but I always felt it was more spiritual than scientific. There's no, like I said, there's no machine or technology or MacGuffin that allows for any of this to happen. Yeah, so I guess it's just the back of mind. I just wanted to keep it a clear distinction between the past, the present, through language, basically. I suppose that's the best answer I can give. Yeah. What would it look like to be able to look through the eyes of an ancestor? That was at the back of my mind with that one. I never really considered it science fiction. Are there specific themes or messages you wanted to convey through the juxtaposition of characters from different time periods? I suppose family, legacy is one of the main themes. The endless drive to want to do the best by those that we love and hold closest. Henry's given an opportunity in 1912 that would immediately benefit his family and himself, and change their lives forever. Even though that means leaving the security and the community that he's grown up around, ultimately it would be best for his family if he takes this opportunity and sails on Titanic to America. And likewise, David in 2012 sees an opportunity to help one of his oldest and closest friends, perhaps right a wrong in her family history, even if it comes at perhaps a personal cost to himself. So fate was a big one that I wanted to explore as well. Mortality, morality, legacy, all the big themes. Just get them all in there. Next question. How do you explore the impact of the Titanic disaster on the characters and their understanding of time and identity? My God, that's a question. I suppose relating it to to the real world, the ripples from that night in 1912, they still expand even today. Even I suppose in most recent history with the Ocean Gate disaster, there's something about Titanic and its story that just resonates with people, and it echoes through time, and I think it will continue to echo through time forever. There's something about that night that is pivotal to human history. It is, well, I mean, it's in the title of the book, isn't it? It was the death of one chapter in human history, and it was the new dawn of another chapter. It's sort that people say it gave birth to the 20th century, did the Titanic disaster, and I think that is such a fascinating thing to try and explore. And likewise in the story, there's those echoes through time. They affect David and Bridget both as well. When they realise that the sinking of that ship has directly brought them to where they are in their own lives, without them even knowing it. So you can sort of explore, is their meeting actually a direct result of the sinking? Were they always fated to meet? And if that is the case, do they have agency? Do they have free will? Is anything they choose actually real? If things had gone differently on April 14th, 1912, would they have even met? It's that butterfly effect theory. The sliding doors moments. I think it's fascinating the amount of branches that one tree could have from just one little event.
Little.
It's amazing. Yeah, so I think I explore that well in the book. But again, I'll let the readers be the judge of that. How do you think the time slip element adds to the overall reading experience and engagement? Well, again, that's up to you guys to determine. For me, I mean, I wrote the book for myself, and I think it's fascinating. Again, it's that wish fulfillment thing of being able to see in the past and getting the answers for myself. I think the concept of it is very, very alluring. Yeah, I don't know. You'd have to judge for yourself. I like time travel stories. You can do anything with them, as long as you don't create a paradox. But I think you'll find that in the next book, I sort of expand on the time slip stuff. I mean, if you like that sort of thing, Sliders, Back to the Future, that kind of stuff, give the book a try, and judge for yourself. That's all I can say on that one. What kind of emotional or intellectual journey do you hope readers will have when reading this novel? Ideally, I'd hope you'd learn something that you didn't already know. Like I say, I spent a lot of time researching, so I would hope that there might be a little bit of something in there. I know one of my readers came to me and he had to jump on the internet straight away when I mentioned that there was a Model T Ford that was coloured green. And they were absolutely adamant. It's like, no, that was one of Ford's marketing things, isn't it? You can have any colour you want as long as it's black. You've made a mistake. They didn't have green ones, and I'm like, they did. So he learned something. So yeah, if they get a little bit of knowledge out of it, that would be good. And maybe if they could pose the question to themselves, what would they do in that situation? I'd like to hear their answers. If they went to that hypothetical question that Jim Cameron posed to the experts, you find yourself on the deck of Titanic 1 minute after it struck the berg, what would you do to make a difference, or try and make a difference? I'd like to hear other people's ideas for that one. Love the book. What other works are in the pipeline? Well, as I've alluded to, I am working on the sequel to A New Dawn, which is one that I hadn't actually planned in my original pipeline. So that's been an experience. That one is called False Horizon, and I'm hoping to have that out by the end of the year. I'm very close to the end of the first draft, so if I can get that discipline, we should have a new book this year that we can all enjoy. I had a few people coming up to me saying I really, really loved A New Dawn. What happened to them? What happened to them after that? You left it on a bit of a cliffhanger. So hopefully this next book will answer that for him, and it's given me an opportunity to try my hand at a little bit of epistolary writing, journal writing. So maybe the narrative technique and the prose will be a little bit different, and it's been fun writing it. It's been very difficult, this one, but yeah, it's been fun. Like I say, I've got a few other books planned that all take place in the same universe. Couple of smaller self-contained stories, and then I have plans for an epic trilogy, which I started writing, man, it must have been 13, 14 years ago. So I can't wait to get back into that and see how I can sort of adapt what I already have written down in terms of that story, and just sort of work it into this larger universe I've created. The final book in that trilogy will be called The Dark Island, and that's where the name of the channels comes from. It's all building towards finding out what the Dark Island is. Do you see yourself exploring similar themes or genres in your future writing projects? Yeah, I think so. I enjoy writing it. I like speculative fiction. I like history. I like science fiction. I like fantasy. There's going to be all of that in there. I might try my hand at other genres as well. I'd like to see if I've got the chops to make something scary. Maybe I could come up with some horror-based book in that universe. We'll see. I've got a pipeline. I'm going to stick to that for now, but we'll see what comes. I'm not getting distracted by any new ideas. Are there any specific lessons or experiences from writing this that you will carry forward into the next projects? Yeah, I think probably not to doubt myself so much as I did in the first one. Don't doubt yourself. Write the book for me. If I enjoy it, then surely other people out there will enjoy it. Yeah. And I think don't get when I started writing, I watched so many YouTube channels and read so many blogs from indie authors with that had lists of do's and don'ts for writing. Don't get bogged down by that stuff. Don't get bogged down by the do's and don'ts. Listen to your heart. Write what you want to write. I was watching some people who's like, oh well, you need to have one of these, and you need to have one of these in your stories, and you've got to have like calls to action and things like that. But it's so formulaic. It almost becomes artificial, and everybody following those advices. Well, you know where the book's gonna go because they're all following this blueprint. I didn't like that. I got too bogged down in that when I first started writing A New Dawn, and I've sort of left that behind. So I'll definitely carry that forward. I'll write for me, and basically not care what other people think. And if that leads to a good book, it leads to a good book. If it doesn't, it doesn't. But I've enjoyed the process, and I think that's all that counts. If you can get yourself good beta readers as well, they will help you out. Just have the confidence in your own writing. Don't be going on to like writing subreddits and saying, oh, can you check this paragraph for me? Does this sound good? Right. Just be confident in what you're putting down, and then you can deal with the minutiae later. Last question. Finally, What is the Dark Island? That is the question. That is the question. You'll have to wait. You will have to wait and see what the Dark Island is. I don't want to give that away. That's years away. Maybe I don't even fully know myself, but it's going to be a hell of a journey finding out. Excellent. Well, thank you again to everybody who sent in those questions. You know who you are. I hope the answers, were worthy of the question that you asked. I tried my best. But yeah, thank you very much. Thank you very much for reading the book and taking the time to send the questions in the first place. I really, really appreciate it. When I set out on a writing journey, I always said to myself that if I could, sell one copy to somebody, and they come back and say, thank you for that, I really enjoyed it, then I would be complete as a writer. I don't have any lofty goals of being the next Stephen King or anything like that. I just wanted people to enjoy my story, and it seems I have achieved that goal, and that's just spurring me on for more stories. So thank you very much to everybody who's read it, and I hope anybody who hasn't read it yet finds time to do so. It's available on Kindle Unlimited and paperback via Amazon at the moment, so please feel free to get yourself a copy and have a look at that. I hope you do enjoy it, and I hope you'll stick around and enjoy False Horizon when that comes out too. Thank you very much everybody for watching this video. I know it's been a bit of a long one, but I hope you found it informative. I guess there's nothing else to say, but if you like the video, hit the like button, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already done so, and hit the notification bell for future updates. And until next time, as always, be excellent to yourself and each other. Bye for now.